Today on the show, we talk to Dave Minuk from Illegal Curve Hockey about the Manitoba Moose. Welcome to the Griffins Pipeline Podcast.
Welcome back to the Griffins Pipeline Podcast. We are a podcast brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network, and we are sponsored by DraftKings. I'm one of your hosts, Connor.
I'm the other host, Kyle. We're a show brought to you by the fans for the fans. We're not officially sponsored by the Red Wings or the Griffins. And we do this not for the love of the buck, but for the love of the puck. So today on the show, we get to talk to Dave Minuk from Illegal Curve Hockey up there in Winnipeg, covering the Jets and Manitoba Moose. Get to talk to him about his show and how he started. And then we dive into the matchup for the Grand Rapids Griffins for the season.
Yeah, it was a really fun interview to have, even though at some points I was kind of in my own world because we had some connectivity issues. So bear with those a little bit because I was kind of unpresent in part of that interview, but it was a fun time talking to him, and hopefully we can talk to him again down the line.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, Dave. We'll go ahead and we'll dive right into this interview after DraftKings.
Hockey is back, and this season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, brings you all the speed, skill, and nonstop action you love. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get paid out $300 in bonus bets instantly. Not just the NHL, but the AHL too is available to bet on DraftKings Sportsbook. So don't forget that you can place your next bet on the Griffins. If you just have that urge to make your bet, I'd take that bet to DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. Pass-through of per wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. Copyright NHL 2025. All rights reserved.
So today on the show, we have Dave Minuk from Illegal Curve Hockey. How's it going, Dave?
It is good, Connor. How are you?
Doing great. Excited for the matchup this weekend between the Manitoba Moose and the Grand Rapids Griffins. It's going to be a fun one. It's our home opener, the Griffins home opener.
Yeah, I saw that. The 2-0 Grand Rapids Griffins, if I understand correctly. So I was talking to some folks covering Moose practice today, and they were saying that the teams that are looking tough are Grand Rapids, Rockford, and potentially the Manitoba Moose. So it should be an interesting season in the AHL with these teams right now.
We end up with a lot of veterans on our team, and I think they're going to be shouldering the load here early. So good start.
Well, I've got a pretty good connection to a former Grand Rapids Griffin who has Calder Cup glory, and of course is from the Manitoba area in Derek Meach. So whenever I get to see Derek Meach and talk to him, he's a good resource. He's back here in Winnipeg now, but of course I know that he had many years in the Detroit organization before he ended his pro career here in Manitoba.
Yeah, I believe he was one of the originals.
That's awesome. So what's Illegal Curve Hockey?
Well, that's a long answer. I could spend the whole time talking about Illegal Curve. I'm not going to do that, but we basically are a website and a show that we began back in 2007. So obviously before the Jets came back, we were just a bunch of guys in school, and we started up a website to kind of keep ourselves occupied, covering all 30, I think at the time, 30 NHL teams, who even remembers, but essentially what we did was we kept, or maybe it was 32 at the time, but anyways, we aggregated a lot of news and we covered all the teams. And then we started in 2009, we branched out. One of our friends was at at the college for like a communications college, and he had an opportunity to do a radio show. So we started the Illegal Curve Hockey Show after the illegalcurve.com website. Like I said, it started in 2007. And then we were on that for a couple of years. We actually exceeded, he was already done being a student. And then they're like, well, you guys are students here. You really shouldn't be on the college radio station. So we moved over to Sports Radio 1290, which actually became TSN, which of course is similar to ESPN here in Canada. And so we joined that radio station as like an independent show that we had every Saturday morning. And we did that one until TSN, or Bell Media, I should say, decided to pull the trigger on a couple of the radio stations here in Canada. So when they did that, thankfully we had the infrastructure through the website and through our kind of online social media presence to make the switch. And we switched over to YouTube. Best thing that ever happened to us, of course, was doing that. We had so much more interactivity with our audience. And so we've been on YouTube now, and now, because of course that radio station, which was the radio voice of the Jets, when they pulled the trigger, I should say, or pulled the plug, we ended up creating a post-game show. So we started doing called the Illegal Curve post-game show, in addition to our Saturday show. So our Saturday show, 2 hours, Jets, mostly Jets talk, a little bit of Moose talk, and then we do a post-game show after every single Jets game during the regular season, and then of course in playoffs. Yeah,
Awesome.
So yeah, anyways, just quickly, and then I'll just finish. I'll finish it off. But we basically we started with Jets coverage in 2011 when they came back, and then we started to just have our focus. We were fully credentialed, had access to practice, games, that sort of thing. And then in 15-16, when the Moose moved back from St. John's, I made the decision to add Moose coverage. We're pretty much the only guys in the, not the only guys, but primarily the main guys who cover the team here in Manitoba. So we added that element of coverage because I think it's important to cover the AHL. I think that, for a variety of reasons. I mean, there's people who are pure AHL fans. There's people who are fans because the prospects in the system are on that team. And then there's, those are kind of your makeup of, and then there's the casual, the kids that make up a lot of AHL audiences, and they're kind of indifferent, but they just love to yell and scream at games and stuff like that. So that's kind of our audience, if you will.
Yo, can't forget the locals for sure.
Yeah, you got the hometowners. So the Manitoba Moose last year, they had not the best season. They finished last in the division. Do you think anything's changed? Do you think they're gonna step it up this year?
It is a world of change this year from last year. So first of all, they've got a lot of prospects. It's kind of like Detroit. I mean, the Jets, to me, and as I was saying to you guys before we got going, I spent a few years in Michigan, so I'm familiar with kind of the philosophy of Detroit, and kind of overgrow your prospects on the farm, and then eventually they'll bust out and be ready for the NHL. And it's a somewhat of a familiar, and I should say similar philosophy here in Manitoba with the Moose and the Jets. And so we've seen, and ironically, we can see the number of Michigan-born guys who were far, down on the farm. Connor Hellebuck, he was in St. John's, played a few games with the Moose, and then of course made his took over the net and has not stopped. And then you've got other guys like Kyle Connor, and the list goes on with the Jets who have developed in that manner on the farm, and then of course made the jump. So the Moose this year, I should say, have a lot of exciting prospects who, in theory, were supposed to come back to them, first and second year pros that you thought might come back, but they ended up staying up with the Jets. But they've also got a big influx of these first round picks from 2023 that are going to be on the team this year. Not even just first round picks, but a number of draft picks who are turning pro and are ready to go. But most importantly, what the organization did philosophically was change last year, because they had good vets, but it just didn't work. But this year they've got even better veterans, and they really insulated the talent of these prospects with really good veterans. Like they got Phil DiGiuseppe from Abbotsford, who of course won the Calder Cup last year. They brought back Mason Shaw, named him captain. They've got a guy like Jared Anderson Dolan, who has a lot of NHL experience, Walker Dewar. So they've got a lot of guys who are really good pros who maybe are on that edge of the NHL, but are right now of course, they got lucky. A lot of them cleared waivers. And then they've got a really kind of talented back end, because they got even David Gustafson, who just cleared waivers. He's another guy who just spent the last 4 or 5 years in the NHL and now is down in the AHL. So if you look at this forward group, and I've covered this team for 11 years, to me, they're the most talented forward group I've ever covered for the Moose. So I think they're really good. They've got a good young goaltending duo. This was the youngest goaltending duo in the AHL previously, with Dom DiVincentis and Thomas Milch, again, 2 Jets draft picks. And the D core is solid. It's not spectacular, but anchored by Elias Salamonson, who's their second rounder from 2022, and he is a very good talent. So there's a lot of excitement for the prospects, but I think the team overall, people are excited about.
Yeah, Salamonson looked really good last season.
Yeah, and you really need those veterans to really in the AHL to go far. I mean, the recipe for success isn't necessarily a bunch of young prospects. So the fact that the Manitoba Moose have a lot of prospects and they have the veterans, it bodes very well. And it's really good to have your veteran core. So who are the captains and the assistant captains? Do you know?
Yeah, so they named Mason Shaw as the 13th captain in franchise history. This was just a couple days ago. And Ashton Sautner, who's a good Flin Flon boy, which is northern Manitoba, for those unfamiliar, but he actually grew up in Alberta. He was the alternate, as is Phil DiGiuseppe. So Shaw is relatively new to the organization. He was, of course, a long time Iowa Wild forward, and he joined the Moose last year. He stayed this year and signed with them. And Phil DiGiuseppe, of course, like I said, came over from Abbotsford. So they gave those 2 guys kind of the veterans, and Ashton, who's also a veteran as well.
So who do you say the top immediate prospects ready to go up are? Maybe the top 3. And this, I guess this could be some of the players that interchange a little bit. Maybe they're just veterans ready to go back up. But who do you say the top prospects are ready to move?
Well, ironically, I'd say the top prospects are the guys who are actually up. So Nikita Chibrikov, who's a 2021 second rounder for the Jets, he had 17 a couple of years ago. He didn't have a great year last year because he got hurt. He had a season-ending injury in January, so he missed quite a bit of time. But he made the Jets out of camp, so he was one I was expecting to be in. And it's like as you guys know, it's trickle down, right? So if you have injuries to your main guys, it gives opportunity to the younger guys. And so a guy like Cole Perfetti, he's out of the lineup. So the Jets need a top 6 winger, someone who's capable of sort of that production. You know, Adam Lowry, the captain, he's out for at least the first month. So that gives another opportunity for someone. So what I thought the Jets would have done was, because what they've traditionally done was send their guys back, let them play games, and then call them up as needed. But this year, what they did, which was surprising to me, was that they didn't send guys down. So Brad Lambert, 2022 first rounder, he's now down. He's down with the Moose, but initially he wasn't. You had Nikita Chibrikov, as I just mentioned, and Parker Ford, who was undrafted, but he had a really kind of he's had a really good development path. Like when the Jets first signed him out of college, he was a Providence College guy. They signed him. He ended up, many thought he'd be the 13th forward in his rookie season. Didn't end up happening. Went back down to the Moose, played well with them. And then last year made his NHL debut, scored he's a Rhode Island guy, scored in Boston of all cities. So pretty nice for him to be able to get his first NHL game and first NHL goal in a city close to where he was born, where lost some family and friends. So they didn't send down Parker Ford, Nikita Chibrikov, and Brad Lambert, all 3 guys who I thought would be your top 3 kind of recalls up to the Jets. So they like I said, they sent Lambert down, but those are kind of the 3 that of the names. So they really, to be honest with you guys, those are the guys who I would have expected as prospects, even though, like I said, Ford's older than the other 2. Those would have been the 3 names that came to mind. And now it really becomes a function of role, because they're not going to recall the next kind of wave, the ones I mentioned, like there's 223 first rounders. One is Colby Barlow, who just turned pro. He's an OHL kid. And then Braden Yager, who's, of course, the guy they got in the Rucker McCrory trade with the Penguins. He is a WHL guy. He also just turned pro, scored in his first game with the Moose on Friday night against Laval. So I don't think those guys are ready quite yet. Those guys are going to need some seasoning. And whether they make their NHL debuts, that's another question. But my guess would be the next recall is and I thought they might, because the Jets, it looked like Cole Koepke, who was in the game against the Islanders on Monday and blocked the shot, may not be able to play. He was skating today. So no recalls, but Brad Lambert would probably be the first guy I would imagine that gets recalled. And then if after Lambert, maybe Gustafsson, if he scored 2 goals on Sunday in his first AHL game in a few years. So maybe he's the next guy called up.
So if you were to, out of all the players that left this year, who are you going to miss the most?
That's an interesting question. I'd have to. I'm now you're making me really think. I wasn't planning on doing that this show, but who is the biggest loss for the? That's a good one. It's funny. Because the problem is, I'll be honest with you guys, the Moose were such a tire fire last year, and 31st in goals scored. I don't know. I'm not so sure that there were too many guys that you'd list and say, well, they're going to be desperately in need of them. Now that I think about it, probably Dominic Tonnato, the captain from, he was named captain last year. Maybe he was a pretty steady presence. And they turned the corner on him. Actually, Johnson Fielby, I thought was he's obviously a good pro. The Jets claimed him off waivers many years ago from Washington, speedy guy. But the problem is none of these guys had really good years. So they were good veterans, but they weren't able to really kind of bring the team to that next level. But I would say they were good role models for the young players who were with the team last year. So especially a guy like Axel Johnson Fielby, like the Jets had one of their 2022 sixth rounder, Fabian Wagner, who's playing in the SHL and was supposed to play in the SHL last year. And then all of a sudden he's joining the Moose in November. So, that's quite a transition to go from Swedish hockey to the American Hockey League. Didn't have a point in his first, he might have had 1 point in his first 31 games. Then went on a crazy tear, scored like 7 and 7. And really kind of looked like he was kind of understanding it. I think he ended up with 8 and 5 in his 53 games. But the point I'm making is that a guy like Axel was really good in terms of kind of mentoring him. And that's what the Jets have always, through the Moose, have always done, is had good players to mentor the younger players. So that, in that regard, I don't mean like on ice production, because really nobody was producing last year, but from that sort of mentorship role, Tonnato was good in that regard, as was Axel Johnson Fielby.
Yeah, talk about the Central a little bit and talk about some predictions.
So where do you think the Manitoba?
So who do you think's lead the Central this year?
One of the biggest things I find on our show is I try not to make too many predictions, because too often you end up looking like an idiot, especially in the AHL. It's so hard because there's so much chaos potentially with the roster, right? I mean, if you lose 2 or 3 guys that are your prime guys up to the NHL for any length of time, well, your team could be in trouble. So I honestly don't know. I really don't. I mean, for me, I always like to evaluate things, and I'm not trying to punt the question, but to me, the problem is, like, I like to see how the Moose, look against the other teams in the division. How do they stack up against Texas? How do they stack up? And to be honest with you, I'm pretty narrow focused. Like I don't look around the league until the Moose are really playing a team. That's when I'll kind of focus on them. I'm not a generalist, I'm a specialist. So I really try and hone in on what's happening with the Moose. I can tell you, what these guys are having for breakfast, literally, but I'm not so certain I could tell you what's going on with Texas right now, or Milwaukee, or until they're kind of in the purview, until you're actually like, okay, the Moose are playing them. I got to kind of get to know a little bit about them, what they're up to. So to be candid, I don't know how they stack up, because I couldn't tell you if I looked at all the moves yet to really know how Milwaukee and Texas and, all these teams are going to stack up. But I mean, it seems like, and it's funny because you'd think like a team like Rockford, a lot of the guys, like, even though Chicago's, been drafting first overall, it seems like kind of like on the Oilers trajectory for the last 20 years. But the fact of the matter is that you think a lot of those guys would be up at Chicago, but of course we saw in Rockford, they have quite a number of their prospects. So it's a long answer without answering the question, because I'd have to see all these teams play before I could really give you kind of an assessment as to where the Moose stack up against everyone. The only thing I will say, though, is, again, from a scoring perspective, I think this Moose team is going to be very dynamic and very capable. So I would for right now put them up against anybody and think that they're capable of battling it out for top spot in the Central.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, it's a tricky question. Obviously, there's not a lot of information at this early in the season, and the rosters change daily, let alone monthly, let alone throughout the season. So I think it's you're safe playing it that way. there's no real, we're not looking for a solid placement or nothing. But yeah, it's a little bit tricky to try to place a prediction on the AHL standings by division. So
for sure. Hey, I wouldn't have been able to predict that the Winnipeg Jets were going to finish with the President's Trophy last year. So if you asked me last year at this time how the Jets were going to do, I would not have told you that. I would have told you they were a playoff team. I wouldn't have told you. So that's why they play the games. That's why we get to watch the games. We analyze the games, and then we can look back at the season afterwards and say, okay, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, look, it's going to be a good season. I think I'm looking forward to it. I think everyone here in Manitoba is looking forward to Moose hockey and another season here. Like I said, I can't believe it's already been 11 seasons covering this team since they returned. So a lot of fun. And again, like I said, if we have this conversation in a few months, we'll see where everything shakes out. But from everything I've heard, Grand Rapids is going to be a good team. Manitoba Moose are going to be a good team. So it should be a lot of fun covering the Central and the AHL this year.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dave. And if we meet up in the playoffs, we might just be contacting you again. So
all right. Well, I will be available, and maybe if I come to here's the ultimate question: do they have a Carrabba's in Grand Rapids?
Yes, they do.
All right. Well, then I might even ask the Moose if I can get on the plane just so I can go to Carrabba's, because that's like that was like my favorite spot to go.
Oh yeah, that's a birthday favorite around here for sure.
All right.
Well, if you're ever in the area, we got e-tickets.
All right, guys. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your night, and we'll talk to you guys another time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dave.
Yep, thank you very much.
And you can find Dave at the Illegal Curve Hockey.
Thank you so much, Dave Minuk, for coming on the show and talking to us real quick about the Manitoba Moose, giving us an update on their off season and how they're going to look this year. Best of luck to the Manitoba Moose this season.
So that will get us into our final segment of every episode, the penalty box. Welcome to the penalty box. This is the final segment of every episode. We like to put the biggest idiot in the box in the sin bin for a 2-minute minor, 4-minute double minor, 5-minute major, or game misconduct. Kyle, who are you throwing into the box?
So today in the box is going anybody, any department store, any grocery store that's got the Christmas stuff out right in front where you can see it. That stuff should be hidden way back behind any Halloween stuff or any Thanksgiving stuff. I just don't understand the huge rush to get it out this early. Everyone buys their stuff when it's post-season anyways.
Yeah, it's not even Halloween, so definitely penalty box. I want to see scary stuff. I don't want to see Santa Claus. Santa Claus does not scare me.
Get the skeletons and the ghosts and the spiders out. I liked when stores used to actually go hard on decorating for Halloween.
Yeah, not the case anymore. So have fun in the box. What are you throwing in for, Kyle?
2-minute minor here.
2-minute minor. So who I'm throwing into the penalty box, Oklahoma man lied about being a lawyer to visit his girlfriend in jail. Actually convinced the people to let him in the jail. And then he went in there and proceeded to kiss his girlfriend. So gets out. He's now been arrested with impersonating a lawyer or false impersonation. So have fun in the penalty box.
It's kind of wild. You go to prison just to kiss your girlfriend. Hey, man, that's true love.
I mean, I'm going to do a 2-minute minor because I guess he might really love her and he's just trying to be Romeo. I don't know. Yeah, so have fun in the box. 2-minute minor. So that should wrap us up for this episode. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Give us a 5-star review. Enter our Carter MAZUR giveaway or call in for our ticket giveaway. Yeah, enter in those, and we'll like to see you out at the games. Go Griffins.
Go Griffins.
Thank you for listening to the Griffins Pipeline Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, give us a 5-star review. We are part of the Hockey Podcast Network. We are not partnered with the Grand Rapids Griffins, Detroit Red Wings, or Toledo Walleye. We are not experts. We are just die-hard fans looking to make a community with others alike. Let's go Griffins Nation. Join the fun, like, and follow us on Facebook and X. or call into the show and have your opinion heard. 1-616-319-1175. Thank you. Grand Rapids Griffins, Toledo Walleye, and Detroit Red Wings. Players, coaches, websites, and social media. Thank you AHL.com, NHL.com, ETL.com, EliteProspects.com, and anyone else putting out information on the teams. Until next time, go Griffins. Go Red Wings, go Walleye.